Good evening, students. So today we are going to discuss about lesson number 4, the remaining part of lesson 4. So we were discussing about lesson number 4, which is theoretical concept of operating system. So we were discussing in the class regarding what do you mean by operating system, what do you mean by software, and what are the types of software. So you have two types of software, which is application software and system software. And then we were discussing about how operating system works. All right, then we were discussing about the uses of operating system during the class hours. Okay, now this is a very important 5-mark question, which is called as the key features of operating system, where you have user interface, file management, memory management, fault tolerance, process management, and security management. Okay, so we will discuss about these things one by one. All right. So now the first one is what is user interface. So user interface came into existence only after the invention of Windows operating system. All right, because before the invention of Windows operating system, we only made use of codes to see the files and folders, etc. So only after the graphical user interface, which came into existence after the Windows operating system, it was very user friendly. Okay, so for example, you can see icons, you can see desktop, you can see folders, you can see files, and when the file was modified, etc. All these things were only came into existence after the graphical user interface. Before and all, it was only character user interface. We used to call it as CUI, character user interface. That is, you will never see logos like this or icons like this. So it would be very difficult to handle those scenarios. All right, so the user interface is one of the significant features in operating system. The only way that the user can make interaction with a computer is by making use of this graphical user interface, which is called as GUI. If the computer interface is not user friendly, the user slowly reduces the computer usage from their normal life. All right, so if there is a situation like that, only most educated can use computers, and only those who can code very well can use computers, then there is no use of having computers in our day-to-day life like how we are using nowadays. All right, so only after the invention of this GUI, that is even the operating system, which is called as our Windows, it is very user friendly. All right, so this is the main reason for a key success of GUI, which is called as graphical user interface based operating system. Then the GUI is a window based system with a pointing device to direct input output, choose from menus, make selections, and a keyboard to enter a text. Okay, so pointing device is nothing but our mouse is our pointing device. All right, so we can choose from menus. So for example, if you are opening an MS Word, you can see file menu, edit menu, view menu, like that. You can choose the sub operations from those menu options. All right, and you can select the text. For example, if you want to select from choose and till this thing, you can directly click the mouse pointer here, and you can click and drag and select the text where you want. All right, and a keyboard to enter your text. So your keyboard is your input device, your mouse is your input device, monitor is your output device. All right, so its vibrant color attract the users very easily. So even if you take this slide, it's very colorful, so that it attracts the user. And before and all, if you are using a monochrome computers, there is only a black screen with a yellow font, or else with a white font. You can't see even a single image. All right, so the color attracts the users. Beginners are impressed by the help and pop-up window message boxes. All right, so beginners in the sense, for example, if you are having any doubts, in the menu bar, the last menu bar, you can see help menu. Okay, if you are clicking the help menu, you can scroll, and you can even press Ctrl F, and you can type in which content or in which topic you are having doubt in the concerned paragraph. See, for example, if I am having doubt in UI, you can directly press your help menu and press Ctrl F, and you can press user interface. That's it. So very short notes about the user interface will be given there. Alright. So icons are playing vital role of the particular application. So all those things which you are seeing, see, for example, this is an icon for Windows, this is an icon, this is an icon for Linux operating system, this is an icon for Apple, this is an icon for iOS. So like that, icons will play a vital role in this Windows operating system. Alright. Then now Linux distribution is also available as GUI based operating system. So Linux is also called as an operating system, and it is also developed as a GUI based operating system. So GUI is nothing but graphical user interface, where you can click, where you can select the text, where you can see icons, where you can see files and folders in the form of icons itself. You will have a desktop based operating system. The following points are considered when user interface is designed for an application. So they are: the user interface should enable the user to retain this expertise for a longer time. That is what they are telling is, the graphical user interface should enable the user to retain what the knowledge the user possesses. Alright, so with the knowledge the user is having, they should have an interest to operate on the computer. Alright, so that is the meaning which is said here. Or else, see, if a user is having a very minimal amount of knowledge in computer, and if he is trying to operate the computer, it should be user interface, it should be user friendly. Or else, if it is very difficult to handle for a normally educated person, and there is no use of having a graphical user interface or something, a Windows operating system or like that. Alright, so the user will have a minimal interest over the computer, over the internet, so on. The user interface should always satisfy the customer based on their needs. So even every business, for their success, it should satisfy the customer. Alright, so for example, if you are over the internet, if you are typing, for example, if you want to see an image, alright, for example an apple, okay, so if you are typing apple image, so it should be visible, or it should be processed from the server within a fraction of a second. If it takes more than half an hour to see a image of an apple, then the user will have lack of interest over the internet, over the computer, so on. So always the user interface should have customer satisfaction. Then the third point is the user interface should save users precious time. So that's what I said. So if for a simple search, if it took half an hour, or if it took for 1 hour, the user will automatically they don't have they will lose their precious time. Okay, instead of searching the image, they can directly go to a shop and they can see the fruit of an apple. So for creating graphical element like menus, windows, tabs, icons, and reduced typing work will be an added advantage of an operating system. See, before and all, we make use of programming language like COBOL, basic language, Fortran, Pascal. So there and all, you can't see menus, or you can't do a click, or you can't do selection like that. So instead of that, they introduce the graphical elements such as menu bar, windows. They make use of tabs, icons, so that instead of writing codes to access these tabs, they are given a pictorial image for the tab itself. So it's enough that you can press this icon and you can see what is inside it. Okay, so that will be an added advantage for an operating system. So the ultimate aim of any product is to satisfy the customer. So the user interface is also used to satisfy the customer needs. Then the fifth point is the user interface should reduce the number of errors committed by the user. With a little practice, the user should be in a position to avoid the error. See, for example, if a user is making a mistake, the operating system should tell what the mistake which is doing. See, for example, if username and a password is there, and if the user types the password wrongly, the operating system should enable the user, or it should give a hint to the user that the password is wrong. For example, if you are typing the password and username for Google Gmail account or for your Facebook account, and if the username and your password is wrong, it should give a suggestion that the entered password is wrong or something like that, so that the user will be a little bit aware of what is happening. So what the mistake he does for typing a password. Suppose it may be he would have not noticed that the caps lock would be in on state. Okay, so that the operating system should be should give the user a little bit practice, so that the user will never make a mistake for the second time. All right. Then this is what the user interface which you can see in mobile. See, for example, it will have some pictorial representation, it would have some vectors like this. All right, then it will have some data in infographic manner. See, infographic is nothing but it will have some information as well as a graphic, so it will be very easy for the client to see what is happening. So instead of reading a paragraph, it will this pictorial type of representation will be very easy for the user, so that all right, 25%. So it's very simple. There is no need of writing any long sentences like that. All right. So it's very clear that food products, it's having 25%. So population, it's having 2000, like that. So this is called as information plus graphic. So this is called as infographic. All right. Then the next thing which you are going to see in the features of operating system is the memory management. All right. So memory management is nothing but it is a process of controlling and coordinating computer's main memory. So main memory is nothing but your RAM, random access memory, is called as your main memory, or it's your primary memory, and assigning memory block, which is called as spaces, to various running programs to optimize overall computer's performance. So always whenever you are typing an input or the process, it will do some process and it will give the output. So whenever you are giving the input in the memory of your CPU, it will allocate some memory, or here it is called as a space. All right. So it should be optimized very well inside your operating system. All right. The memory management involves the allocation and the specific memory blocks to individual programs based on the user demands. So if a user is having an integer value as an input, so your memory management should take care of the space, how much of space it should allocate for an integer data type. So for example, integer data type would have 2 bytes. All right. So if you are giving 4 as an input, it is an integer value. So what the memory management should do is that it should take care of the data type. For example, 4 is an integer, so therefore it should allocate 2 bytes inside the memory space. All right. Then the objective of the memory management process is to improve both the utilization of the CPU and the speed of the computer's response to its user through the main memory. Alright, see, what the memory management should do is it should optimize and it should improve the utilization of the CPU. So once it has been optimized, automatically the speed of the computers will increase. Alright, it should be done by the main memory. So for these reasons, the computers must keep several programs in main memory that associates with many different memory management schemes. Okay, so you have many memory management schemes for allocation and for deallocation. See, deallocation is nothing but once the input, if the input is given, you should allocate some memory, and once after the process is completed and the output is given, it should deallocate, in the sense it should erase it from the main memory. Alright, but it should be in the hard disk, but from the RAM it should be it should be erased. So that is called as deallocation of memory space. Then the operating system is responsible for the following activities in connection with the memory management. So the first one is it should keep track of which portion of the memory is currently being used and who is using them. Alright, so first point is it should keep track of which portion of the memory is being used, and it should determine which process and data to move in and out of the memory. So what it should do is you should keep in track that which process is running, and what should be the next process which the process should give for the next job which should be done. So all these things which should be managed through the memory management. So allocation and deallocation of memory blocks as needed by the programs in the main memory. So these deallocation is called as the garbage collection. So once here if the input is given, it will be stored in the memory, so that is called as allocation. Once after everything is over, it should be erased from the main memory, that is called as deallocation, in term which is called as a garbage collection. Alright. Then the next thing which you are going to see is process. So now we are going to see about process management. So the process management is a function that includes creating and deleting processes and providing mechanism for processes to communicate and synchronize with each other. A system task such as sending output to a printer or a screen can also be called as a process. So process is nothing but an input is given, and if you are waiting for an output to be produced, so something that should happen between the input given and the output which you are aiming to have it. Alright, so in between the process input and output, so something should happen, so that is called as your process. Alright, so for example, if you are going to prepare a tea or a coffee, so you will have all the inputs such as milk packet, such as coffee powder, sugar, etc. So those are called as inputs, and the final output should be your drinks. For example, it may be a coffee or it may be a tea. So in between something should happen for the desired output, so that is called as your process. Okay. Then a computer consists of a collection of processes. They are classified as two categories. One is operating system process and another one is user process. So this operating system process which is executed by the system code, alright, and then the user process which is executed by the user code. All these processes can potentially execute concurrently on a single CPU. So both your operating system process as well as your user process will be concurrently, by the same time it will be executed in your CPU itself, in your user computer or in your user CPU itself. Then, so this process management alone can be asked in a 5-mark question. So the process management algorithm. So the question may be asked, write in detail about the process management algorithm. Okay, so you have these 4 types of algorithms, which is FIFO, which is first in first out, shortest job first, round robin, and based on priority. Okay, we will discuss one by one now. So what is FIFO? FIFO algorithm, what it does is, this algorithm is based on a queuing technique. Assume that a student, so for example, assume that a student is standing in a queue to get a grade sheet from his or her teacher. So the other student who stands first in the queue gets his or her grade sheet first. So first in, who comes first in to get signature, so will be the first one to move out from the queue, right? Then followed by the second one, then followed by the third one, and so on. So this is the basic logic of first in and first out algorithm. So if you want to see with an example, and here you can see for example, if this is a queue, A enters first, alright, and B enters second. So in the queue, first one is A and second one is B. Okay, assume this is as a student, but in the algorithm, A is a process, B is the second process. So once A process enters in and B process enters the second, so the first process what would be executed is A would be executed and it will move off, and then comes the job 2, which is called as B, and then B will be executed and it also moves from the queue. Alright, so this what is called as first in will go out as first. So here comes A as first and here goes A first. Alright, so this is first in and first out. Then comes the second job, then the second job moves out. So this concept is called as first in and first out algorithm in the process management. Then the second one is shortest job first. So this algorithm works on the size of the job. See, for example, A job has 6 kilobytes and B job has 9 kilobytes. So if you compare these two jobs, which is the shortest job is nothing but your A, because it has only 6 kilobytes. So therefore your A jobs will be assigned first and then your job B. Alright. See, for example, if your A job is having 6 kilobytes and if your B job is having 3 kilobytes, then which job will be processed first is your B, because B job would have 3 kilobytes. So this type of algorithm would see which job has the shortest or which job has the smaller size. So here if you see A and B, A has the smaller size, so that is shortest job would be executed first. So this type of algorithm inside your process management is called as shortest job first scheduling or shortest job first algorithm. Then here comes your example. So see here, for example, P1 duration is 6, P2 is 8, P3 is 7, and P4 is 3. Say the order is 1, 2, 3, 4, but while the execution is happening, so here the which job is having the first shortest duration time, here it is 3. Okay, so process 1 would be completed in 6 minutes or like that. So in process 2 would be completed in 8, process 3 7, it takes 7 minutes, or for example you can take even process 1 have 6 kilobytes, process 2 have 8 kilobytes. So shortest job first is nothing but it compares the size of the process. So it takes the shortest job. For example, here the process 4 would be activating first because it is 3. Alright, so first P4 will be executed, then P1 will be executed, then P3, then P8. Now the next process management algorithm is called as round robin scheduling, which in short we will call it as RR scheduling. Okay, so what happens here is all the process would be assigned and process time, it would be happening in a circular method, See, for example, if you are having 3 jobs, which is A, B and C, first job A will be assigned, then job C, then job C. Alright, see, for example, see here, if process 1 can take 21 minutes, process 2 takes 3 minutes, process 3 takes 6 minutes, and process 4 takes 3 minutes. Alright, So if process 1 cannot complete in 21 seconds, for example, process 1, if it can't complete in 21 seconds, automatically when 21 seconds completed, automatically the process 2 gets executed, then process 3, then process 4. Okay, so again it would come to process 1 because it is not completed in 21 seconds. So therefore it would be in a circular method. So once process 1 gets completed, it would be 2, then it would be 3, then it would be process 4. Alright, then again it would come to process 1 because it's not completed. If process 1 is completed, 2 is completed, 3 is not completed, it will go to process 4, and then again it would come to process 3 because it is not completed, so it would complete process 3 for its second turn. Alright, so this would go on in a circular method, so that is why it is called as round robin scheduling algorithm. Clear, children? Then the next algorithm is based on priority. So the given job is assigned based on a priority. The job which has a higher priority, see, we were discussing about shortest job first, right? So that type of algorithm would see which process is having the shortest time to be processed. This algorithm would see for its higher priority. See, for example, take two jobs A and B. The priority of A be 5 and priority of B be 7. Alright, so here A process is having 5 minutes to be completed and B process is having 7 to be completed, or you can take it as 5 kilobyte and 7 kilobyte. Okay, so which is higher here, job A or B? Obviously job B is higher. So therefore this type of algorithm based on priority would see its higher priority. Therefore job B is assigned to the processor before job A. See, here job A is 5 and job B is 7. So job B, which has its higher priority, will be done first. Clear? Then this is another 5-mark question individually, which is called as security management. So here security management is very important, because without security system you can't access your computer. Alright, because it is more prone for threats. That is, virus can affect easily, a third person can access your computer very easily, for example a hacker, like that. Alright, so you have 3 levels of securities. First one is file access level, second one is system level, and third one is network level. So first one is file access level. So what do you mean by file access level is, you can specifically put a lock for your file. For example, you can even put a password or username for your MS Word file. For example, if a teacher is typing question paper for your class, a teacher can lock the file by making use of the file security system. Alright, so that is called as file security level. So here, see, permission can either be granted by the creator of the file or by the administrator of the system. So it would be offered by the password in a multi-user environment. Alright, so if I am typing my question paper in the computer lab, so that system may be used by another teacher. Alright, so that I should have a password for my file, so that the other teacher can't open my file and see what are the questions which I have been typed. Alright, so both Windows and Linux offer the password facility. Network security is an indefinable one. So people from all over the world try to provide such a security. All the security features are provided only by your operating system. So operating system only should be strong enough to provide all those securities. So file access security, then we had system level security, then we have network level security. Okay, so these three levels of security should be strong enough in an operating system. Then the second one is fault tolerance. Alright, so here the fault tolerance is nothing but your operating system should be robust, that is strong. For example, your firewall which is inside your computer system or which is inside your operating system, it should be strong enough that if a virus is being intruded when you are downloading some files through the internet, your operating system should be strong enough that it should at least give a message that for example, you may see if you are inserting a pen drive, you will see a warning message like virus, there is a virus in your pen drive. Alright, so clear the virus, like that. So your operating system should be strong enough. See, for example, if your operating system is not strong enough, if a virus intrudes inside your computer when you are downloading a content from your internet, or if you are inserting a pen drive and if you are copying something from your friend's pen drive, and if your operating system is not strong enough, then there will be a chance of getting your operating system crashed. Okay, your hard disk may be crashed, or your operating system may be crashed. Okay, so it should be robust. So that's what they are telling. It should be, your operating system should have fault tolerance. Then next one is your file management. So file management is an important function of an operating system which handles the data storage techniques. The operating system manages the files, folders and directory systems on a computer. The FAT stores general information about the files like your file name, your file type, your file size, your starting address and your access mode. Okay, so this is called as file allocation table. So FAT is nothing but file allocation table. So what is it? It is nothing but if you are having your file inside your D drive or inside your E drive, the file allocation table will record that. So when was the file first created, when it was secondly altered, by what time it was opened. Okay, so what is the file size before getting altered, like that. So this will be maintained by the file allocation table. Okay, then the file manager of the operating system helps to create, edit, copy, allocate memory to the files and also update the file allocation table. So whenever you are opening the file again and again, automatically the file allocation table, what it should do is, it should save that when was the file lastly opened and what was the file size, and then what was edited lastly, and whether the file has been copied, or what was the memory allocation lastly, like that. So all those things should be managed by the file allocation table. So this process is called as your file management. Alright, so this would be asked in a 1 mark question, that in Linux the file allocation is called as ext2. Okay, and then you have next generation file system, NTFS. So this would be asked in a 1 mark question, what is NTFS, and in Linux what is your file management table, and then it is called as ext2. So the next topic is multiprocessing. This is one of the features of operating system. It has 2 or more processors for a single running process. Processing takes place in a parallel is known as parallel processing. This is a 1 mark question. Since the execution takes place in parallel, this feature is used for high speed execution, which increases the power of computing. So multiprocessing is nothing but you can do many processing at the same time. That is, you can listen a song, you can type a question paper, you can take a printout, and you can browse in your website. So all these are different process, but all these process can be done concurrently, and that is called as multiprocessing. Okay. Then next one is time sharing concept. So this is one of the feature of operating system. It allows execution of multiple tasks or process concurrently. For each task a fixed time is allocated. This division of time is called as time sharing. See, this we have discussed already, we discuss round robin. Okay, in process management algorithm we discuss about round robin, so that once process 1 gets completed, your process 2 will be processed. If your process 1 is not completed in specific time, automatically after the specific time your job 2 gets processed, but after 3 and after job 4 it automatically comes to job 1 again to get the job completed. So that is called as time sharing. So this division of time is called as time sharing. The processor switches rapidly between various processes after a time is elapsed. Okay, so this is mainly based on your round robin algorithm. Clear? So this is the example which is given as same as your round robin. So here you are having 3 processes. Once process 1 completed, process 2 gets executed. Once after 2 gets completed, process 3 gets completed. If in between process 2 is not completed in 20 minutes of time, automatically 21st second it will go to process 3, and then processing after processing P3 it's over, then it again comes to process 2 to get its job completed. So this is like a round robin, so that is called as time sharing. All right, then your last concept is distributed operating system, and this may be asked in a 3-mark question. So write short notes on distributed operating system. So distributed, the meaning itself the term itself has its meaning. Distributed is nothing but from one system the resources will be shared to many other systems. So that is called as distributed. This feature takes care of the data and applications that are stored and processed on multiple physical locations across the world over the digital network. So this distributed operating system would be possible only by making use of your internet and intranet. So internet is nothing but international network where anybody can use from anywhere. So that is a concept of internet. So what is intranet is, intranet can be used only inside an organization by an employee. Okay, so internet is different from intranet. So internet anyone can access from anywhere, but intranet only certain employees of the same organization can access their network. So that is called as intranet. The distributed operating system is used to access shared data and files that reside in any machine around the world. The user can handle the data from different locations. The user can access as if it is available on their own computer. Okay, so once if your system is connected through your network, if you are typing www.google.com, immediately you can see your Google web page as if you are seeing the Google server is residing inside your own computer itself, but it's not true. Okay, so once when you are giving a request to the Google server from your machine, it goes directly to the server, then the response will be from the Google server to your machine. Alright, so all this happens within a fraction of a second, and those things are possible only through this internet. So that is called as distributed operating system. So rest of the things we'll see in the next class, and here your lesson 4 ends. And be prepared when you are coming for your next class. You just be prepared with the key features of operating system, which is a 5-mark question, and then about distributed operating system, which is a 3-mark question. Thank you, children.